Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Breakfast with Blaha. And today I'm having fat-free Greek yogurt, almond butter, and milled flax seeds. Let's talk about accessory work. This comes up a lot. You get people who say, Jason, you tell people not to periodize their accessory work. So that's not what I say. I say it's not necessary. It's not necessary. But the question becomes, what else could we do? Well, you have lots of options. And here's the main thing to remember. We do accessory work for hypertrophy. Hypertrophy does not require periodization at all. I would argue periodization is never necessary anyways. I tend to agree with my bro Alex Viata, Complete Human Performance, when he and I've talked, and he said, look, it's just nonsense to make coaches sound smart. When we start talking about block periodization and things, hey, that's all it is. Because at the end of the day, what are we doing accessory work for? Which will be the bulk of our training, mind you. Most of our training will be accessory work. We're doing it to gain muscle. It's generally why we're doing it. Now there might be some joint specificity and things. There might be performance carryover with some of it to other things we do. But generally we're just doing it to get bigger and thicker. Okay? It's more or less bodybuilding type training. And I don't like to make that association, but that's basically what it is. It's never required periodization. It just requires progress over time, getting the right amount of volume, quality reps, and intensity with an upward trend in progressive overload. Now, you guys know I generally advocate 10 to 20 sets of muscle group per week. All right? And a lot of you are going to need to be near the lower end of that. Split up over 2 workouts. I recommend upper lower workouts. Everything I write for my clients, everything I do personally, 4-day upper lower. Only a few exceptions for clients. And only clients who get less than that, well, who get anything different than that, is because they need less, not more. If they go down to only 3 days a week. So, you could use periodization. If you said, hey, I want to use linear periodization for all my accessory work, feel free to knock yourself out. But even in a lot of linear periodization models, they just come in and do like 10s or whatever. They do 6s or they do 10s all the time for their non-big lifts. The big lifts are periodized for them. The other stuff, they just come in and just do quality work sets. You could periodize them. It's fine if that's what you want to do to ensure progression. I think it's overly rigid. So what are your options? Well, you could just pick exercises and do oftentimes what I do in program for my people. We do sets of 10. Sets of 10 close to failure. You could come in and you could pick some exercises and progress on them till they stall. Right, when you can't add weight anymore, say you're doing 3 by 10 on a pen lay row, whatever it is. Try to use microplates to add weight. When you can't, or form breaks down or it stalls, you can switch to a different lift. Or you could change lifts every week on them. I don't care. As long as every time you come back to the new lift, you try to make progression on it. As long as you are hitting the appropriate volumes and workloads with a general upward trend in the weight on the bar or the dumbbell or the table or the machine, as long as there's a general upward trend and our volumes are correct, we're good. I mean, that's the main one we look at. If we don't want to go really close to failure or use failure sets or reps in reserve, we're looking for a general upward trend. And even if you started light, but you get an upward trend on those movements, you're going to see hypertrophy. That's what we're looking for. Although if you're starting too light and getting that, you are having weeks where you're not gaining muscle, right? But we need the upward trend. That's it. Okay. Another option, you can leave the same ones in for a long period of time. Let's say you're not getting any overuse issues at all, because that's our big deal. And you're doing 2 different back accessories, from middle to upper back. All right, I don't know. Say you're doing some type of row and a pull-up. Just using those as examples. Weighted pull-up. You could run them for months and months on end. As long as you aren't getting inflammation and overuse problems, you could run them for months. You could not even try to push progression hard, just add weight as you're able. But you were getting within 1 rep to failure. And I mean a true 1 rep in reserve every time. Right? Which means sometime weeks you're going to gain reps then using the same weight. And you could wait till you gain a certain number of reps, and then say you get to 12, and then you add a little weight each time. You could do that. However, you're not pushing a specific progression. You're letting just how many reps you can do determine if you increase. All right? Every time you can get 12 reps on your 10 rep sets, you know it's time to add weight. You could do that too. Will it work? Sure. Now here's the thing. If you use that method, you know for sure if you're growing or not if you can't progress. If you go 10 weeks using one of those exercises and it hasn't made any progress, you're still stuck at 3 sets of 10 with the same weight, and you can't pick up a rep no matter what you do. It's stalled. We could argue you probably need some novel training stimulus and need to rotate those movements. We could argue your lifestyle is not optimal. We could argue maybe you've done your training volumes wrong because you're not getting bigger, because you're not getting bigger at least in the muscles involved. But at that point, you got to say, am I getting my training volumes right? Am I pushing too much volume trying to take these work sets? Because that's the main thing. Something's causing you to not grow. Either you're under recovering or your stimulus is too low. Are you eating enough? Are you sleeping enough? Is your nutrition on point? That's what you have to ask at that point. But any way that you break it down, what do we need from our accessory work? Which again, keep in mind, most of our training, for me, it's 70% of my lifting is accessory work, roughly. Okay. We need the appropriate volumes per week in a way that we can recover from it. We need a given number of effective reps, effective volume, quality volume, not junk volume. Preferably hitting each muscle from at least 2 different angles, which isn't hard to do, with an upward trend in progression. That's all that we need. As long as that's there, your accessory work is covered. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.